Hey everybody, I'm Jeff,
I'm Linda.
and welcome to another VAPI Fireside Chat, where we're going to talk a little bit about ourselves and the paranormal, perhaps, depending on what the question is, by the campfire in our backyard.
Yeah.
And this is where we are when we're not conducting paranormal investigations. See, we got the campfire going there, and
Nice blazing fire.
yes, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, perhaps.
Is it really?
I don't know.
It's 2:48.
Around then.
Yeah.
So, if you have any questions that you would like to hear me or Linda respond to, please drop them in the comments. We will be looking at those questions for future videos to respond. We hope to bring you one of these fireside chats per week.
Yes.
And right now, I'm going to turn the camera on Linda and pop her with a question, and we'll see how she responds. So, a common question that we get, all right? Has there ever been an investigation where you felt compelled to leave before the investigation was completed?
Good question.
Thank you. I came up with it
Good
myself.
question. And the answer is no. Simply no.
I don't know about that. I mean, there was one place with a bush and a weird shadow that Will thought was somebody's foot. And
I wasn't necessarily compelled to leave at that point. And the reason I say that is because
let's go back to the beginning. What was happening
Okay.
at this investigation? And
So
I'll
this
tack
was a
this video at
place-
the end.
Right.
So if you stay tuned at the end, it'll pop up. You can click on it and watch it.
We did a video series called Paranormal Shakedown at one time. And this was a pursuit of the truth behind the Colonial Parkway killings. It was a sort of like cold case / paranormal sort of investigation. And we came upon this place called Ragged Island. And because it was a Colonial Parkway killing, if you haven't seen this video, you have to go back and look at it. Paranormal Shakedown, you have to go to the Paranormal Shakedown and you have to look up the first video that we ever did on the Colonial Parkway killings. This was something that's true to my heart because when I was a kid, this was one of the cold cases that was very prominent in the area at the time. And this was an unsolved murder, a series of murders that occurred in this area. It was a sleepy, kind of quiet town. No really crime ever occurred here before these cases. No crime has ever really occurred here since these cases. And that's the funny thing about it is that these crimes sort of seem to create a sort of a standing point. And there's no other way I can say it. A standing point at this location where when you talk about crime in an area, you have something that occurred, some major occurrence that has happened in that area that has brought you to that point. This is what has brought us to that point. The Colonial Parkway killings were a huge, prolific case at this time. People have brought in psychics. People have brought in all kinds of investigators from the FBI. They brought them down to the state level. They brought them down to the county level. And nobody has ever been able to explain exactly what has occurred in these cases. Whether these cases were related, whether these cases were not related. And that's the crazy thing about it, is that this was a sleepy little town before these cases occurred. We didn't have really serial killings or murders of that kind in this area. So perhaps the deputy sheriffs and the police were not used to this sort of thing in our area. Perhaps it was a lapse in the skill level of these guys. And I'm not saying anything negative about these guys because I really love the York County Sheriff's Department. I really love, the people who work to serve to solve these cases. But when it comes to just your experience, like I say, sometimes your experience can be a little bit lacking in a certain job when you're put to that job. And that may be the case with this situation, but this was a case where two people, a young girl and a young guy, disappeared out at Ragged Island Wildlife Management Refuge. And if you are coming from Newport News, you're driving across the James River Bridge. You go into Isle of Wight County across that bridge. As soon as you get into that county across that bridge, you come to a place on the left-hand side called the Ragged Island Wildlife Management Area. And this is a situation where these two had met earlier in an evening. They had been out with one of their cousins. I can't remember. It's the guy's cousin, I believe. And for some reason, at some point, they decided to meet up later in the evening. Robin Edwards was her name. I don't really remember the guy's name.
I don't, but the first time we went out there, it did come across a spirit box. I do remember that.
David something. Dave Nobles.
Nobling.
Knobli.
NG.
NG. Okay?
Perhaps.
Yes. Now, when we went out there initially for this Paranormal Shakedown video, we were very surprised by what we had experienced. We did not experience something quite as profound. We did not expect to come upon a place that was threatening. We expected to come upon a place like all the other places we had experienced in that evening, places where they were quite serene and quite, kind of peaceful, I guess. And this place was unlike any other.
Pure evil.
Pure evil. Right. We came into this parking lot. There's a long trail that leads through the marshland that goes out to the beach along the James River. And along this trail somewhere, we don't know where, we don't know how, there has been many theories. There have been many suggestions as to how this occurred. But somewhere along the way, Robin Edwards and David Nobling were killed and their bodies were left upon the beach. And at other times, we've been told that there were other people who had committed suicide that were killed along that pathway that leads from the parking lot out to the beach. Now, at this time, it's not a place where you can go and camp. It's a place where you can go and visit at night if you have a wildlife management area pass of some sort, whether it be a saltwater, freshwater fishing license, a hunting license of some sort. We happen to have a freshwater fishing license, so we felt like we were safe in that area at this time that we went out there. But the first time we went out there, we stood in the parking lot. We did not attempt to go down the pathway. And even at that time, there felt like there was something that was just a culminating, how do I put it? A culminating threat of some sort. It was a voice that continuously came over the spirit box that said, leave, get out of here.
It's evil.
The first thing it said was David. The first thing ever out of the spirit box when we got in the parking lot was David. Okay? So we knew that it had some sort of relation or knew some sort of information about these murders that occurred that we were asking about at the time. But then afterwards, it's like, it's evil. Get out. Leave. It's evil. Okay? This last time we went out there, the last time we went out was just Jeff and I and Will number 2 and his girlfriend Emily. And we walked out there, didn't expect anything, really didn't expect anything more beyond the parking lot, where we'd experienced something before. But we walked down this path through the marsh, okay? Totally isolated. In the distance, you can hear passing cars on Route 17. Not necessarily a highway of sorts, but certainly active enough to be one of those places where you would hear cars going down the road, maybe every 2 or 3 minutes, you know. But we're sitting there, we're listening to these cars going past. We see the marshland, the marsh grasses that grow up on either side of this path that leads out to the beachfront. And we're a little bit on edge. Maybe because of the experiences we had had there before. But as we're walking along this path, we come to this point where the path kind of makes this sort of little bit of a right-hand turn, just a slight right-hand turn. But then you look off in the distance and you see this tree, this bush in the distance. And at that point, the tree, the path makes this jog to the left around behind that bush. And at that point, something inside me said, don't go past that bush. Now, I'm one of those people that believes that when you hear something, when you feel something in your heart, when you feel something in your spirit, you need to pay attention to it. You need to listen to what it says. You don't need to dismiss it because it can get you in trouble. And that's what I did at this point. I said, hey, I'm not going to go beyond that bush. There's no way in hell you're going to get me beyond that bush, right? Not at this point in time. Not at this point in the night. You're not going to get me beyond that bush. So my expression of that kind of freaked everybody out. And it was funny because once I expressed that, I was like, there's no way in hell you're getting me to go beyond that bush. Then I think Will number 2 was like, yo, I'm not going beyond that bush, right? And Emily was like, oh no, I'm not going beyond that bush either. Jeff was the only one that was really like, hey, I'll go beyond that bush if she didn't say don't go beyond that bush, right? It was not necessarily one of those situations where I felt like there was some sort of threat that was going to, immediately permeate our lives, but necessarily one of those things where further down the road. It was not one, and it's hard to explain. It's really hard to explain. But it's one of those cases where I felt like if I go beyond that bush, something's going to happen that is going to threaten my life, that's going to make my life harder, that's going to make my life more difficult, and that's not what I need at this point in my life right now. And you need to follow your instincts. You need to follow your gut instinct. If that thing tells you, don't go here, don't do this, don't do that thing, don't do that thing, right? Listen to it, because that gut instinct is there for a reason. It's there because it's trying to protect you from something that is dark, something that is evil, something that's not good, and you can't go beyond that bush. Because if you do, you never know what's going to happen. You don't. And Jeff was like, oh, I'd go beyond that bush. Yeah, you go right ahead, but you're going to bring something back to the house. It's going to be evil, something that's going to be dark, something that's going to follow us back from that point that we're going to have trouble getting rid of. And that's why I did not want to go beyond that bush. Because at that point, that's one of those places where there's never been anywhere else in my life that I've gone to where I felt like I could not handle, or I did not know what was going to happen when we came to that point. And Ragged Island National Wildlife Refuge is one of those places where you come to that point and you say, yeah, there's no way. There's no way I can go beyond that bush, because if I do, something's going to happen that's going to not be good in any way, shape, or form.
So I have to ask, there have been quite a few cases where we have gone out and found these people to be on some sort of anti-anxiety medications. What would you say, in your experience, is the difference between somebody who is mentally impaired, and I say that in the best of ways, mentally impaired in the sense that they are dependent on some sort of medication to make them feel better, or somebody who is maybe, let's say, impaired by the demons?
Impaired by the paranormal.
There you go.
Interesting question. So when we take on a case, we want to look at certain aspects of it, and we want to look at the person. And first, we want to determine, are these realizations that they're experiencing physically happening, or are they happening in their mind? So some of the questions we'll ask: are there other people that live in the house? Have these people been a witness to some of the incidences that have occurred? If other people have seen this stuff going on, then obviously it is physically occurring. If not, then perhaps there's the chance that it is generated by the person's mind. Now, just because it's generated by the person's mind doesn't mean that it's not paranormal. We want to ask the question, why is this being generated from the person's mind? Why is this person experiencing these things? And that could still lead to the paranormal, because there's something that is causing them to see these apparitions or whatever it may be that they're experiencing in their house. Now, I believe that demons can work in several ways. They can work as physical manifestations that other people can bear witness to, and they can also work within one's mind. And a lot of times when demons will work within one's mind, it will be seen as a mental affliction. So these people will seek mental help. They'll get on medicine. They'll often get in an institution. And the problem with this is it's only a Band-Aid. As these people are taking this medicine, it may bring them back. It may block out these images or these visions for a temporary period of time until they get their next dose of medicine. If they are in an institution, they will be in a place where there are several other people with several different afflictions. And the problem here is these people are afflicted by something. Many of these people, I believe, are afflicted by demons. And therefore, you put a person that's afflicted by demons in a place with several people that are afflicted by demons. You have a bunch of demons that are running rampant in this place, all inflicting all these people that are in this institution. So really, the answer to this is not the medicine. Now, in some cases, yes, don't get me wrong, there are people that probably need to be medicated. But in a lot of cases, there are people that don't need to find their answer in medication. They need to find their answer in connecting with God. They need to find their answer in their walk with Him. And in closing that gap that is between them and God, they can cure this mental affliction. And this affliction is not something that's necessarily caused by a chemical imbalance of the brain. It can often be caused by a demonic influence. A lot of times, demonic oppression can appear as a mental disorder. And in reality, the doctors, science, they will not accept the supernatural realm. Supernatural is beyond, as I've mentioned in a previous video, what science can accept. It's something out of the ordinary, out of the realm of physical science. And doctors deal strictly in physical science. So they won't look to the paranormal aspect the possibility that this person's mind is being inflicted, these images or whatever this person is experiencing is the impact of an outside agent. They will think that it's purely within the mind and prescribe medication accordingly. When in reality, you have a demon that's attached to you. And this demon is trying to break down your mind, getting you to see these things that this demon wants you to see, experience this fear or whatever it may be that he wants you to experience, so that he can ultimately come to a full-on possession. And like I said, medicine, it's just a band-aid for that. It's enough to dull their senses to where they're not experiencing this demon. That doesn't mean the demon is not still with them, because as soon as they're off this medicine, it's going to come back full force. Because the only answer, the only way, the only solution to what they have here is God. And there was a man that I read a book from, and he spoke of this. He said, I counseled this woman, and I spoke with her. She had a demon, basically. She had not slept for years. She had all this turmoil going on in her life, and she came to him and found out about his steps to freedom in Christ, which was basically like a deliverance. And after this counseling with him, he said, I don't believe you need to go into an institution. I believe you just need to follow these steps. She went home. She slept for the first time in years. She decided to check herself into an institution. The problem here is the doctors led her to medicine. She was surrounded by these other people that had their own demons, and she got caught up in this world of medicine rather than the world of spiritual formation, which would have corrected the problem and it proved to correct the problem. As she experienced this full night's sleep, she experienced this peace that she's never had before, but she still had that fear in the back of her mind, that worry that if I don't go and pursue this path and get the medication and the institutionalization that I need, I'm going to perhaps deal with this again in the future. So the problem comes in with faith. We got to have faith that when we have the answer in front of us, we stick with that answer. And we have faith that that answer is going to work. We eliminate the fear that's going to arise again, or will arise again. And if we turn to medicine, it might very well steer us clear of the path of God. And in that case, you have a temporary band-aid. When you're off that medicine, they're back full force. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, some sound advice from Linda. Follow your gut instinct, always, in all aspects of life, whether it's in the paranormal, whether it's not. That
Right.
was if now, and the difference is, if this was an investigation where people had called us and said we need help,
Right.
we would have gone down there and stuck it out and done what we needed to have done. But being that this was just of our own curiosities, we decided it's better not to chance it. So we turned around and retrograded to the parking lot.
But see, even if we had been on an investigation where it was somebody that was calling us out there, I would not have gone beyond that bush.
Perhaps. Unless the people needed us to.
I would not have gone beyond that bush.
Perhaps.
No way.
Well, everybody, thank you for joining us for this fireside chat. Until next time, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Linda.
And remember, don't go beyond the bush.